You're staying on top with Nicoletta Heidegger. So there's no completely safe sex except for abstinence. So today we're going to talk a little bit about some of your other safer sex options. There's so many, so if we don't get to all of them, I'll include some links below so you can check out different ways of how to protect yourself from both STIs and unplanned pregnancy. So one is actually an implant. So there's two different ones I think that use it now. There's Implanon and Nexplanon, and so those have to be put in by a medical professional. Usually they put it somewhere in your arm, and it's just kind of this like small little plastic type thing that goes in there and releases hormones to help with birth control. So the downside is that it doesn't protect against STIs, but the upside is that once it's in there, I think it's good for a certain amount of years, and you don't have to worry about taking something every day, and the process of putting it in is pretty simple, so I've heard, but we all have different pain tolerances. So one super important thing to note about all these things is that they work, most of them work pretty well and pretty effectively, but that's if you're doing it as described and doing it effectively and properly, because otherwise they're not going to do their job. So one of the other options is the patch, and so the patch releases the same hormones that most birth control pills do. If you're using the patch correctly, only 1 out of 100 women get pregnant every year using it. Something that's a pro about this is that you might not have to remember to take something every day, and it can just like be on your skin and not really have to think about it. The downside is maybe it might irritate your skin, or maybe you don't want it to show, but you really need to figure out which method fits into your lifestyle. So the pros and cons I think can be kind of subjective depending on knowing yourself and knowing your body, because we all react differently to these things. So it might take some testing to figure out which one's right for you. Birth control pills are another really popular one. The downside of birth control pills is that you have to remember to take something every day at the same time. So if you're not taking it every day at the same time, it really won't be working properly. So make sure that you do that. They can get sort of expensive depending on what your budget is, but they're pretty easy to get from your doctor in terms of a prescription. Another option is the shot. So Depo-Provera is a birth control shot. So you get it usually in your arm or your butt, and it lasts for about 3 months. The upside is obviously you don't have to think about it for 3 months, and the downside is if you don't like shots. With all of these birth controls, it's really important to know your body and sort of track how they're interacting with you. So there's lots of side effects that can happen, and some not. So you need to find the one that's right for you. But it could be moodiness, it could be weight gain. It really depends on how the birth control is interacting with your body. And that's why there's some we're going to talk about that don't have any hormones, which could maybe be better options for you. Another awesome birth control option that also doesn't protect against STIs but helps protect against unwanted pregnancy is IUD. That stands for intrauterine device, not to be confused with IED. So the IUD is pretty cool, especially if you're really reactive to hormones. So there's 2 different kinds you can get. One has hormones in it and one is just copper. And it's this tiny little like T device that they insert up into your uterus. You can get numbing and things done. Sometimes it can be expensive depending on if your insurance doesn't cover it. But the awesome thing about it is that it can last, some of them, for up to 12 years. It can also act as an emergency contraceptive. So if you put it in for up to 5 days after you have unprotected sex, it's actually 99.9% effective in preventing that pregnancy and fertilization from happening, which is pretty cool. And the other cool thing is that it's not permanent. So if and when you'd like to have a baby, you can take it out and pretty much be ready to go. One that a lot of people don't know about is the female condom, and I think these are harder to find than the regular male condoms you're thinking about, but they're pretty cool. They look a little bigger, and the awesome thing about these is that you can put them in like hours before you have sex. So if you know that you're going to an event or on a date where you know you're gonna have sex and don't wanna have to worry about like taking it out, you can have it like in and ready to go. Another cool thing is that the end of it kind of comes out of your vagina, so you can wrap it a little bit around the lips. Some people think that this can protect a little more against STIs in terms of skin-to-skin contact, but I think the jury's still out. So one of the more argued about or contested ways of birth control that also doesn't protect against STIs is the withdrawal or pull-out method. So I think when used effectively, it actually works pretty well, but the issue with this is that most people don't have the self-control or the knowledge or the practice to be able to do it in a way that works. A lot of people also argue that pre-cum can sometimes contain sperm in it. Interesting fact, what helps with this, and which can make pull-out more effective if you choose to do it, is if a guy urinates in between. So the urine basically, since it's also going through the urethra like the sperm, can maybe kill some of that leftover sperm. So pee before sex, if you can. So like I said, there's a lot more that we could talk about and so many more birth control methods, which I haven't been able to include in this video. But if you have one in particular that you're curious about, let me know and I can make a specific video about that one. Otherwise, check out some of the links below and get even more information and find one that's right for you. See you next time for more ways to stay on top.